26 craziest abandoned places around the world. Hey everyone, it's Alexa again and welcome back to another video. Make sure your passport is up to date because after today's video, you're going to want to book a ticket to one of these crazy abandoned places and check it out for yourself. We're certainly lucky to live in a time where we can easily book a flight to one or more of these incredible destinations. 26. Floating Forest, SS Airfield, Sydney, Australia. This exquisite floating forest is what remains of the SS Airfield, a ship that was originally launched from the UK in 1911 using the name SS Coromel. The ship got a name change in 1912 to SS Airfield and transported supplies during World War II. Post-war, it served as a steam collier and was decommissioned in 1972. Most of the ship was scrapped or reclaimed, but halfway through, shipbreaking operations stopped and the hull was left behind. Nature has been left to its own devices and this beautiful floating forest is what remains. 25. Powerplant IM Monsol, Belgium. We head to a small town called Monsol-sur-Sambre to view an abandoned cooling tower. Built in 1921, this was one of the largest coal-burning power plants in Belgium. This tower was able to cool 480,000 gallons of water per minute. The tower was not great for the environment and was responsible for 10% of the total CO2 emissions in Belgium. With increasing pressure from Greenpeace, the tower was shut in 2006. But you can go and check it out, as the door to enter is usually left unlocked. 24. Domino Sugar Factory, Brooklyn, New York. It once boasted the title of the largest sugar refinery in the world. This is the Domino Sugar Factory that was built in 1888, but due to the longest labor strike in New York City's history in 2000, the factory ended up shutting its doors. Workers were unhappy with their wages and working conditions and protested for 20 months. After operating for 148 years, the factory closed in 2004. If you head to the area, you can enjoy your time in Domino Park, which is built on the site of the former factory. 23. Mirny Diamond Mine, Eastern Siberia, Russia. Officially the world's second largest man-made hole, the Mirny Diamond Mine was a project under Stalin, and it fulfilled the need for industrial diamonds in the Soviet Union and saved them financially. Open mining ceased in 2011, and underground mining for diamonds took prevalence from 2009. Interesting to note, weather conditions were so bad that when engineers were digging the mine, every single night they had to cover it up to prevent their machinery from being damaged. During the 60s, the mine was producing 10 million carats of kimberlite diamond yearly. 22. The Hotel de Salto, Tequendama Falls, Colombia. Some say it's left empty because it's haunted, while more believable reports would suggest that interest in the area just waned. The hotel opened its doors in 1928 and was busy with tourists visiting the nearby Tequendama Falls. When reports emerged of contaminated waters, tourists stopped heading to this exotic location. It opened as a museum in 2012, but it's believed to be haunted as, sadly, some have used this site to take their own lives. 21. Kolmanskop, Namibia. This surreal spot was thriving in the early 1900s when settlers made this home in order to mine the area that was rich in diamonds. The diamonds and wealth could only last so long, and after World War I, the area was completely depleted. The people left their little town, and by 1950, it was completely empty. All that's left are shells of homes and lots of sand. 20. The Last House on Holland Island, Maryland, USA. This island's history dates to the 1600s, and by 1850 it started to see families and fishermen settling there. By 1910, there were 360 people living on the island. Winds and tides were not their friends, and erosion was such a huge problem that people had to leave the island. For many years, there was one lonely house remaining on the island, but that collapsed in 2010. The island is now home to terns, herons, songbirds, and brown pelicans. 19. Six Flags Jazzland, New Orleans, Louisiana. This amusement park was badly damaged by Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and although there have been several plans announced to rebuild the park, it hasn't occurred, with many deeming it financially unviable. There have been issues with insurance and leases, and the last update claims that even salvaging the remains would be too costly. It's not possible to enter the park now, and it's under 24/7 surveillance. 18. The New Bedford Orpheum, Massachusetts, USA. The date that this abandoned theater opened is iconic. It was the 15th of April, 1912, the same day that the Titanic went down. This old theater and movie house has served many purposes over the years, to even becoming a tobacco storage unit at one point. The last update for the building was that a non-profit organization was going to revive the building, but to date, it remains vacant. 17. Pripyat, Ukraine. Located close to the border of Belarus is the city of Pripyat, and many of the people living in the small city worked in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. A huge disaster hit the power plant in 1986, which forced the entire city of roughly 116,000 people to evacuate. The city has been left to the elements ever since, yet despite radioactive contamination claiming the lives of over 4,000 people, there's still a group of babushkas living in the area. 16. Bannerman Castle, Polpel Island, New York. This beautiful castle used to belong to Francis Bannerman VI, who purchased the island in 1900 and constructed the dwelling to store ammunition. Building stopped in 1918 when Bannerman died, and just 2 years later, 200 pounds of ammunition exploded, destroying large parts of the castle. 15. SS America, Fuerteventura, Canary Islands. Commissioned in 1940, the SS America served 54 years on the open waters before it was shipwrecked on the Playa de Garci in the Canary Islands. She went by several names throughout her career, but her last name before the wreck was SS America Star. She was on her way to Thailand to serve as a floating hotel before a storm broke her tow lines. There are parts of her still beached, despite being largely broken up since 1994. 14. Michigan Central Station in Detroit, USA. Built in 1913, this station was meant to be a new public transportation hub, but oversights and mistakes were to be the downfall of this place. It eventually closed in 1988, and while the fate of the station is yet to be decided, you can still see it in Eminem's 8 Mile film and beautiful music video. 13. The Nara Dreamland Park, Japan. It's clear to see that inspiration was taken from Disneyland, but because licensing and copyright agreements could not be reached with Walt, Kunizo Matsuo made up his own characters. The park did really well, but when Tokyo Disneyland opened in 1983, visitor numbers decreased rapidly, and the park shut its doors. 12. Canfranc Rail Station, Spain. This once served as an international link between Spain and France, but an accident occurred in 1970 which destroyed the bridge linking the two. It was far too costly to repair, and the station has been left empty ever since. 11. Sorrento Mill, Italy. This abandoned mill lies in a deep canyon in the Vallone dei Mulini, or Valley of the Mills. It was built in the 10th century and served as a flour mill until 1866. When Tassa Square was built, the mill was isolated from the sea, increasing humidity and making it impossible to mill flour. The building was closed and left to nature in the 40s. 10. City Hall Subway Stop, New York, USA. It's hard to imagine that lying underneath City Hall in New York City is this exquisite metro station. The super location of the station meant that a great amount of attention was given to the design of it, but with so many other stations nearby, traffic wasn't huge. All the curves in this station also made it a danger for the newer, longer trains. It's been closed since 1945, but if you're lucky, you can go on an exclusive tour of it. 9. Sunshi Houses, Taiwan. Originally built as a holiday destination for U.S. military officers who were returning from their positions in Asia, Sunshi Houses didn't quite serve the purpose they were intended for. Financial troubles were one of the main reasons, but also several awful car accidents, which caused a lot of superstition about the site the homes were actually built on. The site shut down in 1980, and in 2010, the buildings were destroyed. 8. Grossingers Resort, Catskill Mountains, New York. This used to be an upscale resort which began operating in the early 1900s. Some say this is the spot that was the inspiration for the movie Dirty Dancing. The hotel ceased operations in 1986, but the golf club remained open until 2017, and the resort buildings were left intact up until 2018 when they were finally torn down. 7. Bodie Ghost Town, California, USA. It was the prospect of fortune that brought people to Bodie. The California gold rush in the mid-1800s meant that Bodie was busy with miners and their families. The wealth did not last long, though, and gold strikes in the 1890s caused people to leave the town. The ghost town has been a National Historic Landmark since the 1960s. The town still looks exactly as it did in the 1800s, and you can wander the empty streets to your heart's content. 6. Island Donnan Castle, Scotland. It's not as abandoned as some of our previous places, but this 13th century castle still has that remote feeling. It's often depicted on shortbread tins and touristy items, and is one of the most recognized castles in Scotland. The castle overlooks the Isle of Skye, and is a surreal spot to tie the knot. 5. Khaosan Russia. Flooded on purpose. This used to be the site of St. Nicholas Church. All that you can see is the bell tower, and you can hop on a boat to get a close-up selfie. The town was flooded when the Uglik Reservoir was created in 1939. 4. Abandoned hotels, Campari, Croatia. Dubbed Bay of Abandoned Hotels, you can head to Croatia's gorgeous Dalmatian coast and visit Campari, an abandoned Yugoslav resort damaged in the 1990s thanks to the war. It used to be a luxe hotel, and today still boasts some of the most amazing views you'll ever see. There are several abandoned hotels in the area that were left empty after the Croatian War for Independence. 3. Presidio Modelo, Cuba. Considered the model prison, this Cuban prison was commissioned by dictator Gerardo Machado in 1926. It was considered a model prison, and it made the prisoners feel like they were being watched all the time. Fidel Castro was once a prisoner here. The prison was meant to house 2,500 prisoners, but at one point there were 6,000 people inside at once. It's now open to visitors as a museum. 2. Castello Doria, Porto Venere, Italy. This beautiful castle has sat atop this hill since around 1000 and boasts some of the most beautiful views in Porto Venere, Italy. The castle belongs to the municipality of Porto Venere. During the 70s, restoration of large parts of the castle took place. Today it's used for cultural events, weddings, and art exhibitions. 1. Belitz Military Hospital, Berlin. The corridors are deserted and the patient wards empty, but despite their desolation, the creepy atmosphere inside this abandoned military hospital is strong. This hospital housed German and Soviet soldiers and was in use right into the 1990s. It was built in 1898 and up until 1930 mainly treated lung diseases and TB. It then served as a field hospital during the war. In 2015, a canopied pathway was built, allowing tourists to visit certain parts of the hospital.